Do you like fighters or spacecraft design? Grab your copy of the first Spacedock reference book all about these topics on our Patreon through the link in the description and pinned comment below. Hello everybody and welcome back to Spacedock. I'm Hujiwana and today we are covering the other big Star Something franchise with an ongoing major TV show with a look at Din Djarin's new ship. Throughout this video there's going to be some minor spoilers and scenes from the current season of The Mandalorian, so be warned if you're waiting to binge every episode of it. Din's new ship though, his N1 that he acquired from Peli in the dark, dismal depths of the Book of Boba Fett, I'm not a terribly huge fan of, especially compared to the Razor Crest. The biggest issue I have with it is how vastly different it is to its predecessor. As a single-seat fighter craft, it's way too small and focused in purpose. There's just zero room on it for anything else. There's nowhere for Mando to put things he might need like food and other supplies. It's a shame because the Razor Crest was fantastic. I'm not bothered by it being destroyed, that was a natural development of the storyline and what was going on with the ship and Mando at the time, and was a great way to demonstrate that Gideon was a force to be reckoned with. I mean, how often does a hero ship get utterly devastated like that? There's the Normandy at the start of Mass Effect 2, but that got replaced not too long after by a bigger and better version. There are also the various Enterprises over the years, largely via the movies. But has it happened in Star Wars? Pretty much every big name hero ship is still around and being used. Anyway, the Crest really suited what the show was about, and the character of its owner. It created and resolved situations through its very nature, and whole sections of the show happened because of what it was and what few things made it special, which further added to its iconic nature. And it was also woven into the storyline and father-son relationship between Din and Grogu, with the little ball from the top of one of its control stalks becoming a vital touchstone between them. It also felt a lot more grounded and believable, the N1 does, so far at least. Even in a literal sense, as the Crest had actual landing gear rather than just floating there. Yes, that tech is all over the place in Star Wars, I'm not complaining about that, but it's been shown that repulsors can be matched up with landing gear on the same vessel. But the N1 though, it just looks weird coming down to a landing and just stopping in midair. There's other issues that don't help with it feeling ungrounded, things that even seem like oddness in continuity or other production issues that stem from its tiny, impractical design. Take the Grogu Dome for example, which Peli had installed when Mando and Grogu were separated and, as far as the characters knew, were going to stay separated. Sure, there's an argument that maybe she added it because she was thinking ahead and planning for the future, but that is a bit of a stretch. The dome was blatantly there because the cute little guy had to go in there because cute little guy sells toys. There's some other things along this line as well, like the apparent connecting route Grogu can take from his observation dome to the cockpit where he just pops up from somewhere. And his floating pod also gets stored in a magical pocket of space-time when they travel between planets. Okay, maybe there's some storage space below the dome in the tube that used to hold the astromech, but oops, it got converted back to an astromech socket again. Where does the pod go now? Don't think too hard about it or reality will come crashing down around you. So, a little bit nitpicky I admit, but those aren't really problems the Razor Crest ever had. But the Crest went beyond all that though, it was also a location in and of itself. The N1 can't really do that when it's not being used as a fighter, it's a transitory waiting room between events. At least so far, there is plenty of room for it to grow, if it is even given the chance to. I don't know if you feel the same or if it's just my dislike of the craft, but I'd argue the N1 feels temporary, it's a stopgap measure. The impracticality of it, the way the audience is seemingly supposed to ignore the weird irreality of it, it starts to make it feel like the ship is a throwaway thing no one really cares about. Its issues just get hand-waved away because they don't matter. The craft doesn't matter, it's just a step before Din gets his real new ship. Or until he happens to team up with someone with a better, more practical, more interesting ship on a longer-term basis. Maybe the N1 could have been handled a bit better in these slightly off-kilter first few episodes of Season 3. Something more like being an analogy for a horse to match the western style of the earlier seasons, especially the first one. A man on a quest through the wilderness with his trusty steed, which happens to have a torpedo launcher and afterburners, stopping off on a new planet every week to go through a new adventure while on his overall journey. Somewhat how Season 1 was structured. Slap on something reminiscent of saddlebags, have Din stop off on planets to camp out because the craft has a short range and isn't comfortable to travel too far in one go inside. Yeah, sure, he can sleep in it and wake up with a sore neck, but you know, what about other facilities? So why pick the N1 here anyway? The Crest was an instant classic. It was his ship. It was intensely characterful in its run-down, outdated jankiness. And then it got blown up and replaced by a hot rod spacefighter, which isn't very well suited to bounty hunting when compared to a small transport. Sure, he had a different quest at the time. He had to be redeemed in the eyes of his religion and his peers for removing his helmet at the end of Season 2. But after he had done that, what exactly were his plans? Think about it, back when he got this thing from Peli, Din was alone again. Grogu was off learning, and sure, he could have returned, as he did in fact do in a half-assed scene with no emotional hit at all, rendering the end of Season 2 far less impactful in retrospect. But it wasn't a guaranteed thing. Was Mando going to return to the covert? Was he going off to bounty hunt again? He did want a Crest-style ship, and you can see why, as it was well suited to his needs. But Peli said no, there are none of those. You can have something else that doesn't fit your job description or your requirements, but does it ever hit those member berries from the prequels? Yes, that's right, Mando gets this scuffed up hot rod remix of a fighter that he's apparently an expert pilot of, despite flying around an armed minivan for God knows how many years. Oh, you wanted something new and interesting that grew the universe? Did you want something that could match the character being rough around the edges but was tough and persistent and with a heart of gold? That's another area where the Crest shined. It was a mirror of who Din was. They both predated the Empire, using old tech and old beliefs. Is Mando going to change and grow into something more than a simple bounty hunter now that he is a father and has the weight of the Darksaber on him? If so, his ship should reflect that, and to be fair, the N1 does do that, as it's something older and known about that's being repurposed, revamped and given a new lease on life. But I don't know if it can really grow and change further, as it's such a simplistic and small design. My preference would have been something on a similar scale to the Razor Crest, or perhaps somewhere between that and the N1. Some new ship that could evolve and change through modifications and repairs and upgrades to match Mando's new future and changing needs, without being boxed into a fighter and only a fighter. That would have been really neat, but if there was a requirement to have something that's a remixed old ship, there is some other old Naboo craft with shiny Din Djarin aesthetics. Maybe that's going a bit too far though, and explaining how he got a hold of something even rarer than an N1 may have been a challenge. What do you think? Do you prefer the old or the new? Does Din need a bigger ship to go along with the N1, or do you think he's going to stay paired up with Bo for a while? Let me know below in the comments and what you think. You can support Spacedock by joining our Patreon, where you can get our Spacefighter design reference book. Alternatively, you can support us directly through YouTube by giving us super thanks or by becoming a channel member. Thanks to our supporters, and thank you for watching.